Well, hi, everybody. I am Dr. Jen, and this is called Eat Your Damn Food. This is where we talk about all kinds of topics on food and body struggles. And I truly have the great pleasure to have Katie here with us. Katie, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, it feels so good to be here and to talk with you today, Jen.
Mm. So, why I do what I do is to really be able to have these kinds of interactions because Katie was with us almost 2 years ago. It feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But you were with us day in, day out, working with me, working with our whole team. And so that's really what we're here to talk about today. And so I want to go back a little ways when you were struggling in the very beginning with your eating disorder, Katie. And my first question, because this is a question we get a lot from people, right? Like sometimes people kind of know that something's going on and it doesn't feel good and they're feeling kind of bad. But like one of the questions people ask a lot, it's like, how did you actually know that you were struggling? I know that might seem obvious, and maybe at that very beginning point, you didn't call it an eating disorder, but how did you know you were struggling in the beginning? Like what was happening?
Yeah, we didn't really call it an eating disorder in the beginning, and this happened like a little over a year before I started FAB. So, in the spring of 2021, I noticed that my behaviors around exercise and food were very rigid, and then I noticed that my period was going away, and that's when I brought that up with my family, and we all got pretty concerned about the rigidity and the losing weight and everything. So after going to see my primary, they said I should probably put on weight for my period to come back, but all of that, and the encouragement from my family, like, to put on weight just backfired. It had the opposite effect. I didn't wanna go, like, the, one way, of the spectrum. I just wanted to go the way I was already going, which was going down, which was not a
Mhm.
good thing, although I didn't realize that at the time.
Yeah. Sometimes that's tricky, right? Like people are trying to help, they're trying to help, get you the kind of help you need, but that first beginning part, it actually didn't end up moving you forward. If anything, it had you kind of go back in some ways. It had you like not do so well because it sounds like the fear of like the pendulum swinging for you.
Yeah, like my mind was just going to the extreme. Like if you go down the path towards weight gain, you'll just never stop. That's what my mind thought because that's what I was brought up to always believe.
Mm.
And now that I think of it, whenever I messed up with like trying to gain weight, my dad would actually punish me for that, and that also had the opposite effect. It had me fall back onto my old habits because those old bad habits were a security blanket for me.
Okay. Well, eventually you did get to us, the Food and Body Program called FAB. And I'd like to say it all just, you started and then it was a straight line. And looking at your face, Katie, your face tells the story. It wasn't like that in the beginning, was it?
Oh no,
Uh-uh.
definitely not.
Mm.
Yeah, I had a big fear of change. I think that was the biggest thing when I first started the program. Although I really, really wanted to get better, change was really hard for me because I was brought up in a diet culture home. My dad was always labeling things as good or bad or criticizing me for my eating habits. And those were just so embedded in my brain that I was afraid to trust the FAB program and follow all their instructions.
I do remember some months in, right? Because sort of the gig was up, like like you were getting sort of quote unquote caught with some of these eating disorder behaviors. I can remember there was something with a scale, right? Like there were certain ways that like the truth was starting to kind of come out and you were not so happy with us. I think I can remember some sessions where you were pretty upset. But all of that, it did end up like it kind of got a little intense, but then it did finally something happened where you really started shifting because I think it was like, I really don't want to go into a treatment center because even though we're pretty intensive, we're an outpatient wraparound services. And I remember you were like, I really don't want to have to go in somewhere. I want to do this with you guys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the me being so upset with the program probably happened after like a big turning point that happened in September of 2022. That's when I was at my lowest, and Dr. Narguchi, who's now on the FAB team, was treating me at the time. And when she saw that my weight was so low, she said I had to stop exercising completely and eat more, or I was going to end up in rehab. Now, both the path to eating more and gaining weight and the path towards well, rehab were both very scary, but I didn't want to go into the rehab facility because I used to call it my idea of hell at the time. So I had
Mm,
two scary paths. Like, which one's scarier? You gotta go down one of them.
mm,
So eventually I decided to try the outpatient path instead because, like I said, the rehab center was my idea of
yeah.
hell.
And when you're saying rehab center, that was really going to be a 24-hour residential eating disorder. Because sometimes people hear rehab and they think drugs and alcohol, but it was going to be an eating disorder treatment center. So you really heard your medical doctor who was, giving you, hey, it's going to be this way or this way, and you said, okay, I'm really going to put 2 feet in to my FAB program. And wow, did you, Katie? You
Oh,
really
yes.
did. You really started doing something very different. And I remember some key things you started doing. Like, what do you remember? Like when you really kind of like shifted and said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work with my team. I'm going to be honest. Like, what do you remember some of the things that started to make a difference with your recovery?
Yeah, so like after the rehab scare, I remember I was pretty upset with the team for a while, but then maybe a month or two later, I had this one session on the beach with Dr. Yvonne, and we came up with something that probably could help me. It was not letting the eating disorder have the last word whenever I thought something, like replacing every bad thought with a good thought. So I began practicing that, and I would say after a few weeks or a month of practicing that, that's when I really started to feel a little bit better and started to follow the treatment more. And following the curriculum really helped too.
Hmm. So Dr. Vaughn's our nutrition therapist. She's been doing work with eating disorders for 30 years. And the curriculum, Katie, you were so diligent about doing. So we have an interactive curriculum, and the curriculum's on all kinds of different lessons, right? Lessons about nutrition, body image, emotions, and it's interactive with the team. And so, Katie, you were so diligent about doing that homework, those interactive lessons in between all of your therapy sessions, your group sessions with all of us. And the other thing that was really key is you would reach out for help big time in between your sessions with all of us. Sometimes, like, all of us would get a text and you were like, okay, somebody on this team is going to answer me. And it was great, right? Because you would probably get multiple people giving you support.
Oh, yes. So, yeah,
Huh?
I mean, there was a lot of like stress going on with me at the time, and I just had so many questions, and I knew I had to be honest about like everything what was going on because I really wanted to get better because I didn't want to live this way anymore. And when I eventually had a family in the future, I didn't want to pass on my disordered behaviors to them because it wasn't right.
Yeah. Another key thing was your mom really started participating in a different way in your sessions, right? And your boyfriend at the time also participated in sessions. So, like we heard in the very beginning, like the early interventions when everybody was scrambling, not sure how to help, some of that early help kind of backfired, especially when people were being like really like maybe a little more punitive with you. But what I remember is when we had, like, in particular, your mom, and then later your dad did start participating a little bit more, a little bit more. And then your boyfriend at the time was pretty instrumental in terms of providing some support and learning how better to support you.
hmm I feel like this support was a lot better than it was before I started FAB because now we were getting like the advice from experts that we needed to because before we were just going to a primary, she had no expertise with eating disorders and we didn't know I was dealing with that at the time. But now that we knew what I was struggling with, we finally got the kind of help that we needed and we got the intervention that I needed. So we learned like how to help me.
So now, Katie, almost 2 years outside of FAB and living a really different life. I know today you did one of your favorite things. You're such an animal person. Maybe you can let people let people know what you did today, but you're such an animal person and um doing something that just brings your heart so much joy. But like tell us, well, you can tell people what you did today and then just what is life like now almost 2 years out in terms of your recovery, in terms of your mood, in terms of your life, your relationships, like share with everybody. What is it like now?
hmm Yeah, so like you asked me what I did today. So this morning I actually went on a solo trip to the St. Louis Zoo because I love animals so much and the weather is nice and sometimes when you're like have nothing to do during the day or if you're having a bad day, you have to explore your passions to lift your mood. And going to the zoo is one thing I enjoy. But the main thing why I wanted to go today is because they have actually a new baby elephant at the St. Louis Zoo, 5 months old, named Jet. And I was just like overjoyed to see him just romping around the habitat with his mother and aunt. That was a really sight to see, and it really lifts your mood too. And if someone was having a bad day and if they went to the zoo, I really think that that sight would have lifted their spirits too.
That's so great. And how would you say now your relationship is with food, with your body, with your movement? How's your mood? Maybe you could just give people a snapshot, like life now being in recovery, right? 2 feet in and just living your joyful, fulfilling life is what we call it in FAB.
I would say my mood around food and movement has gotten a lot better. I give myself more rest now and I incorporate all foods now, whereas before I was very rigid with certain foods. And I think a good example of that actually happened this year because I unfortunately back in December got something called bursitis in my knee and I had to like pull back on intense movement for a little while. But in the past, I would have probably restricted and would have been really upset. But this time, I did not restrict, and I gave myself the rest that I needed to, and eventually I was able to get back to the intense exercise that I enjoy. So I feel like I've come a long way since FAB.
Yeah. So intense exercise, but I'm thinking with some balance now, like not making sure it doesn't go too far, right? Because you like movement, like that's been an important part of your life, but making sure it's like you said, taking breaks and having some kind of balance with it.
Yeah, I've with the movement, I feel like I really need to incorporate rest now, and also need to incorporate stretching as well to like prevent future injuries and stuff like that.
That's great. So, Katie, thanks for being here. You've been so instrumental at providing education in your videos. I know you've supported in a mentorship way with some of our people coming through FAB because you know what it's like to walk in their shoes. And just thank you for being here and sharing your story today.
Yes, I'm very happy I could share my story and help so many others out there who are struggling because there is a life beyond an eating disorder.